down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
You tuned in to the Savvy Radio Show. Yes, you did. Man, I just get excited to interview people. For a long time, I've known this gentleman, and I'm trying to remember when. At least 10 years. Do you know?
I think it's been more than 10 years.
Okay, so more than 10 years. Here's a random thing about success. You gotta push yourself if you want to be successful. Well, I really wanted to work on being a better communicator, and I Googled up one time Toastmasters, and of course I've always been an early riser, and I fell into this Toastmaster group that meets at 6:00, I think, on Wednesdays or Thursdays. This is so long ago, can't remember. And I bumped into this guy named Scott Nachatilo, which was very interesting. He was always professional. He had a blazer on, and he was always serious. So when I saw this guy, he took it serious, and I don't even think. I mean, it may be close to 20 years because I think I may have had four units, 4, 5, 10 units. I was one day wanting to write a book, and I felt like I was planning on getting there. And if I was going to write a book one day, I was going to have to speak. So that's how I got to Toastmasters. And then one day, this gentleman I'm across, which I've learned so much from him, he handed me this book called The Weekend Warrior's Guide to Real Estate. And I was like, well, can I pay you? He's like, yes. And he's like, $20. and I paid for this book. And then I just started following him. And then I almost, for a long time, I didn't believe in him. And he would say, I only buy property at 70%. Do you ever remember telling people that? This is at least 10 or 15 years ago. And I thought I couldn't believe that you only bought property at 70%. You maybe said that off cuff. And when I was so young to the game, so this is around 2000, 2001, 2002, because you were like, and you were buying heavy in Gatewood, or you lived in Gatewood at this time. I lived in Gatewood, and you're like, I only buy at 70%. I was like, this dude's crazy. How is that even possible? I'm just fortunate, today, 2019, man, 70% is the only way to roll. So anyway, I just want to introduce, this is Scott Nachatilo. This is the secret weapon of Oklahoma City. A lot of people don't know him. He started a lot of associations and groups and real estate clubs. A lot of people don't know about it. He's been the mastermind behind a Franklin book club that I was very impacted in, and actually got a client from there that Michael Hickson rents here in this building. And I believe it's because of you and because of the Ben Franklin book club that you started, and that your cohort that you started with never showed up and really pissed me off because I thought it was you duo. But we won't say names on the radio. And I've just been following you. And then, you own a property management company. You're very successful. You have units yourself. I've never done a transaction with you. We bumped into each other at several deals. And for months, years ago, we used to have lunch at least once a month. And I was always enamored by you because you're always growing, always moving forward, always becoming better, always contributing to me. We would sit down at lunch, and I'm like, I feel like I always received more. And I usually, when I go to lunch with someone, I always try to give more. And so I know this is humbling to hear this, but it's true. And I just wanted to, get you on the radio. I have been trying to get Scott Nachatilo on the radio for at least 6 or 7 months because he has started this amazing blog that's local, and he really is educating property managers around the country and around the world on how to be an investor and how to hire a property manager properly. And your articles are written very well, and I'm assuming you write those articles since you wrote a book. Is that?
Yeah, I'm the writer.
Okay,
I'm the voice behind that.
Okay,
correct.
And then I don't remember. And then a lot of things is that when we started hanging out a lot. I mean, this is 6-7 years ago. You were in the trenches as well in a lot of low income housing. Are you still in low income housing?
Oh yeah. And when you mentioned buying those properties at 70%, at that time I was doing a lot of marketing to people to sell me their properties, and absolutely everything was a 70% or better bargain, and and I've held on to those properties. I'm a buy and hold guy at heart.
Yeah, and then I ran into you on a duplex that you bought in Crestwood, and you were still. The cool thing is that you're advanced than me. People think that I'm some authority, that I have written a book or several books, and I'm somebody. And where do I get this stuff from? Is people like you before me. I remember going to a property that you were showing in Crestwood. It was a duplex. Do you remember? And I think you bought it, and you bought it out of your IRA. Do you know the property I'm talking about? It's like it's blonde brick. It didn't have central heat and air. It was a really big duplex. Does that ring a bell? About 100,000.
Oh, I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
It was right before Crestwood. It's like 16th Street and May. Do you still have that property?
If it's the one I'm thinking of, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember it was too big for my britches at that time, and it was a slam dunk for you. And I don't remember. I think you were representing it as this was one of your clients, or it was a property management that they wanted to sell the property, and you were doing your due diligence, and you were being ethical by listing the property. It came on the MLS. I came and actually looked at the property, and you showed it to me, and then it needed heat and air. It was no big deal to you, but in my world, I was like, "Ooh, this is on the edge." And then you were like, "I'm going to decide to buy this myself." And I don't know if you remember that conversation. See, I remember this vividly, but it's like a week ago to you. But anyway, so that's how I know this guy. So welcome to the Savvy Radio Show, Mr. Nachatilo. And
I'm really honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And a lot of people don't know you've contributed. People go to this thing called Millionaire Possibilities, and no one knows that you were like one of the intricate parts of that. I remember going to the very first meeting, and you were teaching people. You were actually doing role playing of real estate investing. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
But no one does that today, and that's been a thriving big thing in my world right now. I want to role play. I think that a lot of people, there's a lot of sham gurus out there. Buy my course, spend $10,000, and you're going to be rich tomorrow. But it boils down to practice. It boils down to picking up the phone and making calls. It boils down to learning how to analyze a deal. And you are actually doing all this at least 15 years ago. Is that when MP started?
Oh yeah, it's been on the map for at least that long. Yeah.
So man, I've known you almost as long as I've been in real estate investing. I'm assuming almost 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
So
Probably
let's dial
20 years.
into you. That's me. Let's talk about you. How'd you get into real estate? And then my couple questions from there. We're going to go into there. We're going to go into how'd you write the book? I want to know about that. I want to promote that for you and help you with that. But how'd you eventually get into real estate? And tell us, where you came from, and we'll go from there.
Well, I worked a corporate job back in the late 90s, and when you work a corporate job, you see people at different points in their career, and the most experienced guys in my department were they weren't making all that much more money than I was, and it was like, okay, if I stick with this job for another 20 years, I'm going to be this guy over here. It just didn't seem like there was going to be a way to really get out of ever.
What industry was it?
This was in environmental cleanup. Okay,
like EPA stuff?
Yeah, EPA type. You like let's say a gas station has a leak, and in one of their underground tanks, you have to hire a company to go in, find out how big the problem is, and then clean it up. So that was the kind of work that I did back then.
Or industry, right?
Right. So I decided to check out real estate investing, and at that time it just was not popular.
Was it Carlton Sheets?
Carlton Sheets was my first guy.
Me too. Okay, cool.
I got his info course, and I memorized it. I listened to those.
No money down.
No money down deals. I listened to those tapes and listened to them.
That's awesome.
So anyway, I ended up getting my first deal. It was side-by-side duplexes in 1996. And
so I was 3 years after you.
Okay. All right.
That's cool.
So
1996.
I had all these people telling me, family members telling me how it was a terrible risk. You're going to lose money, guaranteed. I had attorneys telling me, don't be stupid. Don't try this. And so.
Were you married at the time?
Yeah, I was married.
Okay.
And
did your wife work as well?
My wife worked also. Yep,
Okay.
she worked a full-time job as well. We just went ahead and did it, and
When she was on board?
she was on board. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know that she's intricate. I know she's a co-writer of the book, and I know you have, on the picture on the book is a picture of your wife and you. So
Yes.
I mean, we'll get into that in a minute, but most couples usually it's one side. Like my wife is not involved. She supports me and she believes in what I'm doing, but she's not involved. And when I hear a lot of men that are not where they want to be, is they feel like it's their marriage is holding them back of some sort, like the wife is a naysayer. You didn't find that with your wife. How'd you convert her, or was she all in? Is that belief in who you are as an individual, or did she believe in that real estate was a powerful economic force that you could retire with?
Well, maybe she wasn't quite at the level of excitement as I was,
Okay.
but she was definitely, she was my biggest supporter.
So she supported you, and she believed in you,
supported
and
me.
you knew that, hey, Scott's going to make the right decision here.
Yeah, and she helped a lot with bookkeeping and that sort of thing, and she had for a long time. Now she's stepped away to do her own business. She's gotten caught up in this cannabis mania. She's actually makes edibles now. She doesn't. She's not a user or anything like that, but she's making some good money.
I actually bought a building for this particular reason. So I'm watching this industry. So I'm not in it all in, but I have friends that are, and I'm just fascinated by the whole thing. Cool. We'll get into that later. So, okay, 1996, you see an infomercial, you buy this course, and you take a leap of faith and buy a duplex. Was it creative or was it traditional financing? Tell us about that transaction.
The most creative thing about it, it was owner financed, so I really couldn't go. I tried. I went to banks and they were like, no, you're not good enough credit wise.
I love it.
So,
and where you are now and the stature that you have is just amazing. But anyway, when they say that, same thing happened to me.
Yeah. They say, don't ever come back again.
I just kept coming back. Yeah. Density for pain, Anyway.
So that night I got we ended up having to put like $3,500 down, I think, to,
Wow.
We ended up charging that, getting a cash advance somehow. And it we had to put a bunch of money into repairs because the place needed a ton of repairs, but we just kind of took it step by step and
did you fumble through it, you think, or did you have any mentors or education? Just the Carlton Sheets thing, but
well, there was one guy that was key. He was actually a New Zealander here in the United States, and he was our first handyman, and he helped us to get that place rentable.
Well, how'd you know what decisions to make, like how to advertise it and what price range? And you are completely off the, map. All of a sudden you own a duplex.
Right.
You just
I went
through
back
the deal?
to the Carlton Sheets training. I think there was enough
information to get
there
you
was
rolling?
enough in there to, use the copy of the lease that was in there. There was, and just kind of fill in the blanks. I think people try to kind of make it too hard. And
well said.
If you get some simple things down and just concentrate on putting together a simple plan and executing it, that's way better than trying to get, tons and tons of courses under your belt before you even make your first offer.
Do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
All right. So praise the Lord that you had your wife on the board. That's just pretty interesting. I had to take some time to get my wife. I had a different philosophy. I was teaching her the vision of what we're doing. We're going to be rich. This is our retirement. Not rich to be rich, like have fancy things, to be financially free, not to be a slave to a job. And she bought into that through Rich Dad Poor Dad. I would read Rich Dad Poor Dad out loud to her. How did the ball start getting rolling here? Was she always been a tag team in your business, or were you leading that aspect of your marriage as well?
Well, like I said, she was instrumental in helping with the bookkeeping and a lot of the administrative things. And so,
Just a team. So you guys were a team.
We were a team.
Okay, cool.
And so,
So you had the confidence to lean on her and vice versa. Okay, so how'd you get from one duplex to, I know you have over 100 something units now that you own and you manage. Let's just give people some scope of who you are. How many units are you managing right now?
We manage about 420.
Wow. Last time we chatted about this was 300 just a couple years ago. So did you just start going on a buying frenzy? This is 1996. I don't know I don't remember. I just was so begging to get into the industry at the time. Were you buying them all the time? I know you were at 70%. We've already talked about that. Tell us some more. How did you get going?
See, what I ended up with were a bunch of properties that need lots of work.
Distressed.
And they were distressed properties. They were ones where I had to go out and look for owner financing. If I'd have had, a whole bunch of cash to work with, I'm sure it would have looked different. But, we work with the resources that we have at the time.
Me too.
And so, I learned how to do wholesaling. That was one of the things that really got me into making a lot of offers. What I learned was you have to make tons and tons of offers. You're going to get rejected a lot, but you only make money when you get your offer accepted.
It's so cool because I remember I made a lowball offer to you and you were cool with it. You're like, that's just the name of the game. I remember that. Because I was like, man, I don't want to hurt our friendship here. And I'm like, and you're like, hey, this one of my clients wants to sell this property. I went and looked at it, and I was like, man, I don't want. You're like, no, that's a decent offer. I remember that, and I was awkward a situation. So, at this time in your life, 1996, 2000, that 3 to 4 years, were you working at that time as well?
Oh yeah,
How long did you continue on with your day job while doing real estate on the side? And is that why you named your book The Weekend Warrior?
That's it. That's it right there. Because, I think a lot of times people maybe jump ship too soon when they really should hold on to the steady income. You just really have to kind of, I think, have your nut covered. Yeah, that is, what you're going to, and I may sound pretty conservative here, but I'm really kind of a paranoid person when it comes to personal finance. I want to make sure that my family's provided for. Mm-hmm. And so
it took you a little bit longer than you wanted to?
It probably took me a little more. I mean, I really felt like, I can make this work. I can do real estate full time. I certainly could, but I think you also have to do it in a time frame that makes sense
to you.
Right. And so one key decision that I did make was I decided to go on a contract basis with my employer instead of full-time employee. And that helped because it freed up quite a bit of time.
So you became a 1099 at that time?
Yep, became 1099. And
that opened your eyes.
It definitely helped out because it freed up time. I was able to spend more time learning the business so that was key.
Did you have a grand vision? I mean, you went and got your real estate license, and what made you decide to do that during this process? And did you knew that you were going to be a property manager?
Well, so I didn't at that time. No, I kind of struggled like a lot of people do with property management. Not really knowing properly how to screen tenants, not knowing, the best ways to attract people, good high, like for even like a handyman. A lot of people struggle with.
We shared handyman. Remember that?
Right. How do you hire a handyman and keep
passed it back and forth
busy enough? And
a few times.
I mean, it was a big struggle. That part of it was for sure a big struggle.
I remember. Sorry, side note there. I don't remember. I think either I passed the handyman on to you. I think you passed me. I called you in a desperation. I needed someone. You're like, hey, use this guy. And it didn't work out. And I passed him back and forth. And Oh yeah, we went through a lot. We've grown a lot together. Just that one scenario of handyman. You were outsourcing a lot of that and leaving some money on the table, and then you brought that internally and exploded in your own business. So when you made that decision, how hard was that decision to become a realtor? Was it easy, hard?
So my motivation for that was, at the time I started doing fix and flips.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of advantages to having a real estate license, because you get access. I mean, the main thing is you get access to the MLS, and it just makes it a lot quicker and easier to make offers. So it was, and I got to list my own properties and at least keep part of that commission.
Okay.
When the property sold. So it made sense from that standpoint. But as time kind of crept along and I got more and more rental properties, I really started to see where, boy, if you do not have your property management under control, you're just not going to do all that well. As you have to have that under control in order for your investment to do well. Mm-hmm. And since my long-term investment strategy was to do buy and hold, I have to do well at this. And so I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and do property management for other people. I was reading this book called Good to Great. And
Jim Collins. Right,
Jim Collins' book. And it talked about getting really good at a certain thing. And so I kind of asked myself the question, what's the key thing, the key skill that I really need to be good at? And I couldn't, the only thing that made sense was property management. I have to do well at that. So why not, if that's something that I have to do well in, let's just make that a mainstay of my career. I'll start a property management company, and it'll help because one thing that a person that you really need to have is, if you're going to be an investor, you need to have your active income. You need to have, whether that's working for someone else, or owning your own business, you need to have that source of income to pay your bills.
Right.
And if you don't really have that, I mean, I don't really see how you're going to do well as an investor. You have to have active income.
Before you made that decision to be a property manager or make that your number one success, I remember as a DJ, I looked at, I'm going to be the very best wedding DJ possible. It brought the most income in, and it was the easiest and funnest. I know it was just, I was insecure of weddings, and I just made the conscious decision, I'm going to be the best wedding DJ. I could see that with you. But you wrote the book before that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, you're just going along, buying property, being an investor, quit your job, and why'd you decide to write the book? What's the philosophy behind that?
Well, the decision to write the book was, I really liked sharing information with other people, mm-hmm. and I thought it could help. Now we got together with this book publisher, Tate Publishing. They don't have such a good reputation nowadays, but
yeah, I don't know about them, but anyway.
Anyway, but they convinced me that let's write this book, and
this is early 2000s, right?
I think we published that 2005, 2006, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how long you had it, but I know you had it. And so you made a conscious decision. Someone approached you. You were successful in real estate. You were a real estate realtor. And, say, hey, it sounds like a good idea. Let's write a book. And at that time, there wasn't no gurus, really, but only Carlton Sheets, right? At that time, there wasn't
there was not a ton. No.
Not
right.
like where it's like they're crawling all over the place like ants.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. People, someone told me the other day they thought I was one of those people. I was like, Yeah,
Well, you've written a lot of books, Stephen.
but I just enjoy writing books. I enjoy reading. Like you, I enjoy helping people to be better. I want to be better. I want to be the very best. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it well. So the property management thing, so that took off. I mean, because property management in my world, they suck. Property managers besides you. And I'm not saying that lightly just because you're on my show. I just been watching you for many years, and I've seen a lot of property management companies go under. I see a lot of property managers steal. I see a lot of property managers just do bad things to bad people and good people. What makes you stay in an industry that's not the most positive, hey, let's be a property manager? I don't see people waking up or, graduating and running, knocking at your door, being a property manager. How did you sustain and keep this going when everyone else thinks this is the worst industry?
That's a great question, and let's face it, dealing with tenants, having people call you upset, irate sometimes, because and sometimes, like yesterday, I had to call a tenant, and he admitted to me that he was in the service industry, and he has people complain to him all the time. He says, "I know I'm just venting right now, but can I just vent, please?" And so I said, "Go for it." Anyway, you're just going to have some of that, and I think of it more like running a marathon. It's a long game, and it's a little bit like owning a restaurant or like a 7-Eleven or something. I mean, it's not glamorous by any stretch of the imagination.
True.
But it's a good bit, if we can kind of get into philosophy of I'm sure some of your listeners are probably business owners.
Sure.
Or maybe want to be
I want to get
business
into
owners.
people, how do they hire a property manager? I think that'd be a great question I would like for you to answer. And then how do you handle business and what key elements? But the reason why I say that is because I, as a real estate investor, when I started growing and getting to, 50, 60, I tried to hire a property management company, and they ran me into the ground. They would never communicate to me. I wouldn't know. I was just out doing what I was supposed to be doing, making more money. And then I would come to find out, that house was vacant for 3 days, or, and I just, of course, I wasn't a really good manager of managers at the time. And that's basically why I've taken all my property management internally. And all the time I get people to ask me, and that's why I continue to refer people to you, is legally I can't manage other people's property. That's one reason why. But people ask me all the time, I just got burned by this property manager. Who's his name? They say this name, never heard of him. And they're lost. And this is not what they want to do. They're introverted, or they don't want to market properly, or they don't want to show a property, or they don't know how to do an eviction. They don't know the law. They don't know the HUD regulations. And these are the key elements that you need to know as just owning a property as an individual, let alone just the regulatory rights and legal rights that as a property manager has to abide by. That's why I asked you that question. Like, how did you sustain through the thick and thin? Because I know that for fun, I dabbled in as a property manager. I don't know if you remember this. About 5 years ago, I called you a lot, and I was like, let's start a property management company together. All these people are calling me all the time.
Yeah.
And then for fun, you're like, listen, you got to have a license. I was like, yeah, whatever, Scott. I was like, and so for fun, I dabbled as a fake property manager. Just like if my son wanted to be in the stock market, okay, good. Act like you have money and start following these stocks and see where this goes. Okay. That's what the advice I would give my son. Now, for fun, I was managing other people's property. And it turned out to be a freaking nightmare. People would call me upset with me because other tenants made bad decisions. Or, they would expect me, like, I remember this is when I fired my whole property management aspect of helping other people. I remember, and of course, I coach people all the time, and I write books, and I do all this stuff. And this investor, I remember very vividly said, I need you. Yes. To go to every house, okay, take a picture every month of their air filter. I was like, what? Because I guess you heard in one of my podcasts or something or this is before podcast, but that, the air filter is a critical mass in heat and air, because the heat and air bill is the most expensive repair. You know this as a property manager. This is the BS, and you're dealing with it right now. It's springtime. Yeah. Yeah. So how do we hire you? I mean, not you personally, but what key elements do real estate investors that have one house to 100 houses, what should they look for in a property manager?
Okay, but before I answer
Okay,
that question,
sure.
I want to back up just a minute.
Sure.
Because one thing this triggered a thought that I think it's critical in order for you to maintain your sanity as a property manager, even if you're doing it, if you're managing your own properties or you're managing someone else's, you really have to have a heart of service, and you need to get on. You need to look at situations from both sides of the ball. You need to look at it from the tenant's perspective, from the owner's perspective, and kind of take those both of those things into consideration, and really have to try to work towards a fair solution. Like if your owner's complaining about this or work toward fixing whatever the complaint is, but you can't always do that if it's going to be something that's going to it needs to be legal. It needs to be something that the tenant's gonna because sometimes I get requests that are sometimes a little outrageous, but they also have to be. You want to keep that tenant in place. You want to keep them happy, and I mean, because otherwise it's just bad. They're going to be complaining about other things. I mean, you want them to refer people to other tenants to you, and you want them to stay put in the property. So how do you what are some things that you do to evaluate property management companies? One is to look at their Google reviews, because that's when tenants are upset, when owners are upset, especially, they're going to post something. Now, if you see, especially if you see negative owner reviews, that's a really a big red flag, because even if I've had, like, I don't have that many owners that leave us, but I don't think I've gotten any negative reviews from an owner before on Google. It would really take a lot, I think.
Well, let's give us a scope. I mean, what do you got, like 100 or 50, 60 owners?
How many reviews?
No, owners.
Owners, around 90 or so.
So you're dealing with 90
clients.
psycho people on top of 300 and something psycho people. I mean, think about it. Because here's the thing, the investors are kind of crazy themselves. They have these crazy expectations. And I think it's my job, my voice is to tone investors down. Like, go run a property yourself first and realize the work, like, in general. So you're dealing with 90-something investors alone on a regular basis, right? You give reports of what's going on.
Yeah.
And then you're dealing with 400 tenants on the other side of things as well, right?
Right, correct. Yeah.
Okay, so let's dial back. So number one, look for Google reviews from the tenants and or from potential investors.
Most of the time, they're going to be mixed together. Whatever the company is, you look at their reviews, and you're going to, expect some negative reviews from tenants.
Oh yeah,
because if
they hate me, why?
A lot of times, in the course of doing what you're supposed to do, you're gonna trigger a negative review just because they don't like being evicted.
Yep.
They don't like
because you hold the law in place.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry, you have to. It says the document that you sign. I don't want to get into that. So what else? Look at reviews. What else? Come on, I'm trying to hire you. What else? What else should I be looking for? How about do you have a policy and procedures manual in place?
That's a good one. But I think there's some other
What's
things.
What's your policies?
No, right?
Just in general, that's a question that the investor should ask. I actually I don't know if I did a podcast on this, but what to ask a property manager. How long they've been in business?
In business, that's a good one for sure.
What else should I ask? Come on, I'm interviewing you right now.
Well, one good one is definitely how big an office how many people do you have on your office staff?
Okay.
And in your on your maintenance crew.
Critical.
And compare that to how many doors do they manage? I think the critical thing to look at there is, you don't want to have a one person operation trying to juggle 150 units.
Can't.
They might be able to somehow figure that out, but I think that's going to be pretty tough.
I think I did 50 comfortably by myself, but when I got to 80, it was like a nightmare. It was a full-time job. Mm-hmm. And then when I got to 100, it was like,
Right. So in my operation, we've got 5 full-time office people. We've got 4 full-time technicians, and
maintenance people.
Yeah, maintenance people, and that's a pretty good balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've got some part-time people too.
With 400 units out there, typically, and I don't expect you to answer this if you don't really know it or remember. What's your workflow of work orders? Is it like every day there's calls coming in? Obviously, what size magnitude?
Yeah. Every day there's something. I would say that we would average maybe 4 to 6 work orders a day.
Of some request.
Yeah, some kind
leaky
of
toilet, something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And so you have an intake person.
Sometimes it's big. Sometimes it's, my unit is flooded. Yeah.
Or how about it's on fire?
I've had that one.
Yeah. Well, it's sparking outside. Yeah. The electrical weatherhead came off from the storm. I've had those as well. Okay, what else? How about evictions? How do you outsource the evictions? Do you guys handle that internally, or how does that work?
Well, there's 2 ways you can handle that. You can hire an attorney to do it. We do it in-house.
Save cost?
I mean, yeah, it saves for the client. It saves a little bit of money. Now, I mean, it's not hugely expensive to hire an attorney. I think it's like $200-300 to do an eviction.
Sure.
Plus your filing fees. We don't charge the client for doing that because I feel like it's charging for legal services, and I don't have a law license, so I can't charge for that.
Cool. That's why I like you. You've always been upfront. One of the games, let's just get this out in the air, that some people, I'm a property manager, and then they own a construction company at the same time, and they're double dipping. What's your philosophy on that? How do you recognize that? Like, I saw, first of all, I had a lady go bankrupt, and she called me with 7 units in Edmond. It was $700,000 worth of property. And she's calling me, Steven, and I started doing forensic in her accounting and just looking at where did she go wrong? How could you only owe $500,000 on these properties? How can you not be cash flowing? And where I noticed it was in the repairs. I noticed that the property management company would have an invoice for $500 to change out a blower fan. And of course, this gal at the time didn't understand what a blower fan was. And so she had faith that she hired this property manager to take care of these properties. And a lot of people, a lot of people don't know what it takes to be a property manager. I do it day in and day out. It's a nightmare. And you have to be thick skinned in some degree. And it's really, I don't see it being a lucrative business. That's why I'm a real estate investor, because it's a job all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's something going on. Someone needs to monitor an email or a text message or a call all the time. So to scale, you're going to have 400 units to either have something functional. And I'm just, that's just how I look at it. But I see a lot of small mom and pop property management companies can't make it off of the percentage that they're charging. So they find other ways to make money, and they do that for repairs. What's your take on that, and how do we be aware of that, or what ways can we find that happening? And obviously, if I was looking at this girl's financials much earlier, I could deem, that doesn't sound right on a blower motor, and I don't really know what a blower motor costs today, but back then. What's your take on that, where property managers out there, scandalous ones, are overcharging to out-of-state investors what it costs to get something done, like put in a door that may cost X, but they're charging it 4 times or 3 times bigger? How does a real estate investor see that and know that and correct that?
Well, I think out of any area that that property management can do something unethical, it's definitely in the area of maintenance and repairs. I think just because a property management company has a construction arm, that doesn't necessarily mean
they're bad.
They're trying to put together some kind of scam. The fact that we have maintenance on staff, I mean, so in essence, we're doing something similar to what what you're saying.
Sorry.
I mean, I'm
your pricing
not taking
structure
offense.
but your pricing structure is in line, right?
I think, and I think one thing is it needs to be transparent. So we have an hourly rate that we can sit.
So you tell your investor this is what it costs.
This is going to be right. This is going to be what
are
for
those
maintenance.
costs, like off the top of your head?
So for maintenance, we range from $30 to $45 an hour, depending upon what they're doing.
The skill set.
Yeah. So the top end of the scale, $45 an hour, that's for a guy that does heat and air work.
Okay. Still, because I pay $60 an hour right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I pay. I pay, like on a service call, I pay $60 to $75 right now for heat and air. And
you're getting a good deal at that price.
Well, right, because I have a lot of volume, and I've negotiated that what they normally charge is $125 to $150, depending. And if you call somebody, with out of the phone book, you're paying $200. So that's a fair. So you're up front with those pricing beforehand. So you're actually saving money as a real estate investor by hiring a.
I think so. Now, another thing that we have built into our contract is if the cost exceeds $200, then we're supposed to consult with our client
investor
and let them make our investor to let them make a decision whether So if let's say we had a fan motor go out in the AC unit and it's going and we think it's going to cost $350 to do the replacement on that, email the owner, get the okay before we do it, and then go ahead and do it.
And that protects you that you've communicated. And so why'd you set $200 as a limit? Could the investor say, hey, man, don't call me? Because like I have that same barometer here, my property management that's under me. I'm like, don't call me unless it's over X amount, $2,000. I mean, $1,000 for the first property manager, and then I have a property manager over that property manager, it's $2,000. Can someone set that price for you? Or is this just across the board, everyone, anything over $200? And why did you choose $200?
Well, $200, it's hard to, below that point, just about, I mean, I'd like you to make a list for me of the things that we can get done for less than that. It's not going to be a very long list. So in essence,
clean out,
would be
sink repair, handyman, door jam, keys locked.
Right. I mean, there's going to be some things, but
right. I mean, I thought you asked me.
That's okay. So
I'm just trying to help out.
Right. So, but I think above that, so there's probably, I'd say, 40% of the time we're gonna need to reach out and get permission from the owner before we do something, and you don't want to tie your property manager's hands too much. You want to get quick service to the customer, because the longer you keep them waiting, the more frustrated they're going to get.
And the tenant.
And you want to the tenant. You want that tenant to be happy. And the longer that it takes, communication wise, the longer, to get permission before you do it, to go ahead and do it. So there is that aspect.
Well, what do you do if you got a deadbeat freaking investor that doesn't respond? They're broke.
Well, that's a problem. Yeah.
Obviously, that's happened the way you just shook your head. I'm assuming you could be normal here, Scott. You could be jovial. All right. Like your customers. Your customers are probably not listening, or your tenants. So don't worry. Only because your clients entrust you, so they're not trying to be better. So they're not listening. The tenants, they wouldn't give a rip. So only the newbie or future property managers.
All right.
So open up a little bit. Damn. But how do you handle that guy?
Well,
do you stiff arm? Is there a line in your contract? Can I help you there?
If it comes right down to it, we may have to part ways.
Okay. So if they're not compliant, because you slows your whole operation down. You got a handyman waiting there. He's billing you,
right?
And and it's a simple job letting to get it done, but it's a little bit more because the parts are $80, and we already racked up $60 in labor or whatever, $100. I don't know. I'm just making this up. But
I'm going to tell you a story, and I'm not making this up.
Okay.
We actually have a client right now who we cannot get a hold of that person. They're somewhere in California, and we manage a couple of their properties. We don't have a telephone number. They're not responding to email, and we keep sending money, and it goes into the account. But we're trying to get a hold of this person about a leaking roof. So you know what a cluster that can be if
the tenant's frustrated. Mold could be a liability issue for you, and well, not you, but you could pass that on to them. But so what do you do? Fix it? Not pay them?
No, no. I mean,
this
we
is
need
why
to,
I don't manage property.
This
is the logical answer for me. Take their money and freaking fix the damn roof. I don't want to be in front of a judge. Yeah, I'm sorry. They were on a mission trip, or I mean, I'm not trying to be Christian. I'm like they were in Tahiti. I mean, There's no excuse. So what are you doing? All right, Mr. Property Manager Master, tell us.
I don't have a good answer. You don't have an answer? One.
Damn, let me consult you.
Other than
take the money, fix the roof, patch the roof. It's more than $200. It's got to be $350. For me to get my roofer up there, it's a minimum of $200 just to get the dude up there. Mm. And if it's a bundle, labor, you're looking at $300 to $500.
It's not an easy patch, though. I think we're gonna have to at least replace the roof. So we're talking,
3Gs, 5Gs. So then that money's not in the account unless you manage. Mm-mm. Wow. And so you could move the tenant out, displace the tenant because there will be mold. There will be.
Yeah, there will be.
Because it's drywall.
I'm sure there is mold.
Yeah. And now we're setting up a case. Now you're in a liability issue where you could be named in this. Of course, you always can be. But the reality is like, man, I would put them on notice and put the tenant on notice. I would displace a tenant if it took more than 30 days. That's just me. Hey, see, you can always hire me as a consultant. I'm the G. I'm the gangster. The G will, I don't know. I always treat people, and I know you're like this too. This is why I like you. It's like you treat people the way you want to be treated. It's the golden rule, right?
Golden rule.
You want to help people, and you want to be fair and honest. You don't want people lying to you all day. Hey, this is what it is. I don't know. I can't get a hold of the owner, and we can help you in any way we can. We don't expect you to live in this environment, but our hands are tied legally. We don't have 5Gs of someone else's money to manage. Wow, makes your job a little bit more tough. I'm glad you came on the Savvy Radio Show. Counseling 101. All right, so let's talk about your goals here. Where is this going? Like, do you have a franchise model in your mind? I know you're an entrepreneur. I'm right. You finally, after you quit your job, you had to be an entrepreneur. You forced yourself to be an entrepreneur. You're always learning. You probably read more books than the average. What goals, dreams do you have? I had a weird dream of 1,000 units, and I realized that's dumb. I just like living and enjoying the freedom of life that real estate provides with 10 units or 100 units. Regardless, now I guess maybe I'm maturing as an adult, and I don't need to be cool anymore. But how about you? What 400 units is stardom in my mind. Where is this going? Do you want 1,000 units? Do you want to manage? Do you want to buy more? You're in the thick of things. Your phone has been ringing nonstop the whole time.
I know. I keep looking down at it.
I'm like, I need to coach you on getting an assistant. And now I know your wife is not involved, so because she's probably out playing all day, and your daughter's older now, so I'm assuming she's busy. You're taking the brunt. So where is this going? Tell us. Tell the world so we can put this on tape. Right. So we can be accountable to you.
Perfect.
As a friend.
So, we talked about newbies, and when you and I were newbies, we were younger. We were in our 30s. And so
that's exactly
what was a priority for me in my 30s. Those things have changed, and I'm sure it's the same way for you. Family. And so right now I've got a 15-year-old daughter. And so she's getting close to, it's time to move out of the nest, and so.
You mean drive out of the nest?
Drive. Oh yeah.
Is she gonna drive the Prius?
She would not. I
remember you picked me up in the Prius one day. Do you still have that thing?
I do. It's my goal to get 250,000 miles. That's one of my first goals.
Okay, cool.
I mean,
Anyway, so you're still kicking it in the Prius for at least 10 years.
right. We're getting on 10 years. So, I think as we get older, we value family and our personal time, and spiritual things a lot more than we did when I was 30 years old. That list wasn't, that wasn't the same.
Sure.
And so, one thing that I can do in the way of adding value to my company is to get more people involved, to train them to do better. And so, one thing I like to do is professional training because I feel like it's my responsibility to kind of lift people up.
Yes.
And when I lift people up, they can help the company earn more money, and that way they can earn more money. Mm-hmm. So, cool. And I definitely want to bless their families as much as I possibly can.
You're providing for all those people, at least 9 people. No. Right, 9, 5 and 4.
Yeah.
And a lot of people come in and out of your world that you take them off the street and you help them and give them a job, and then you got to fire them.
Right. Sometimes.
You've been through so much stuff. I've been to your old office. I've been to your new office. I've seen you grow tremendously. Right. What? So,
but let me finish that.
Yeah.
So another thing is also, I'm not blessing people as much as I can if all I'm doing is project work on property management. I need to build my staff out more. So one thing is to hire a general manager to take on a lot of this project work that I'm doing. And so if I'm doing my job, I can get these people trained in, and that helps me because then I can freed up to do the things that are most important to me, which are taking care of my family and spending time, with my wife, with my daughter, spending time on projects like, for instance, I work in my synagogue. I'm head up the social action committee, and we do a lot of projects like we do a meal once a month with feeding at the Homeless Alliance. We just helped a refugee family. We completely furnished their apartment. They came from Burma.
Cool.
So, spending more time doing those types of things. Yeah, doing service projects.
Awesome. Well, let me help you here. There's a book you need to read called Rocket Fuel. Have you heard it?
I don't think I have.
Okay. It talks about there's a visionary and then an integrator. And the reason why the lifestyle that I have is I have an integrator that executes the vision. And so you're doing both jobs. You're doing the vision and you're doing the integration. So your general manager needs to be an integrator. So if you want to work for a very successful property management company, you should read the book called Rocket Fuel. And I was listening to it last night. I actually read it and listened to it. My staff has listened to it. My integrator that does, because she's not an entrepreneur. She's not a risk taker. She's a compliance and get the job done person. And she takes care of all my details. That's what you need. So, but I was listening last night to the book, and it talked about there's integrators that need people like you, and it's not a one-sided thing. And when you really listen to this book or read this book, it paints the picture of who you really are as an individual, and looking for the integrator who really just wants to be behind the scenes that gets glorification in their own heart and their mind by running the machine properly and organizing it. And that's what you need. You need an integrator. So I definitely recommend that book. It's called Rocket Fuel.
Rocket Fuel.
Ladies and gentlemen, changed my world. I'm about to do a podcast on it. So I just let the cat out of the bag. I just finished it last night. I gave it to my integrator this week, and actually last week she finished it. She kept texting me. She's like, we need to make a t-shirt that says Visionary Prozac. And that's what an integrator does, is like they keep you sound and keep things in line. Like, I want to start this. I want to do this. I want to buy I had property out of state, and an integrator, really hones in on what the vision is. You as a visionary and the integrator get together and decide on where we're going to take this. Are we going to get to 1,000 units? How are we going to do that? The visionary kind of writes the plan, the business model, how they're going to line it out. And the integrator, they execute that plan. I'm telling you, man, I have that lifestyle. I've had that lifestyle for 5 years now that I've had an integrator in my world. And just now identifying her as an integrator, and she loves it. She read the book and she's like, that's me and that's you. You're a psycho. Like, okay, thanks. I'm a visionary. I see things that other people don't see. That's what entrepreneurship is. So you have had a great ride thus far, and I know great things are going to happen in your world. And there are people that are going to hear this podcast and they're going to be like envious or how or why, or people are envious of me. And, and I know that your answer is real simple. Just do it. What advice would you give those people? I just threw out a book out there called Rocket Fuel. How many people are really going to read it? I'm telling you, this is one of my top 25 books right now. My children will read it. Either they're going to be an integrator or they're going to be a visionary. And it's nothing wrong. One is not greater than the other, but you're going to need one of them or both of them to succeed at Paramount. So I just threw out there, if you want to work for you need a general manager. I have one. If you want to be the very best general manager, read the damn book called Rocket Fuel. It will teach you exactly what a general manager does and what their execution is and how to communicate with an entrepreneur, and vice versa. The entrepreneur needs to understand how to communicate to the integrator. How many people are really going to read it? And then how many people are going to call you and say, hey, I want to apply for the general manager job? That'd be epic. But for enough of that, me beating people up today, let's get into what advice would you give? What's something that you've learned that you wish you would have not done? Just to give you some, I wish I was very creative financing in the beginning. When I started, I felt desperate. I felt like I couldn't get deals. I couldn't get banking. I got no's as well. And I just pushed through creative financing. Then I got lazy and got into bank funding. And now I'm like, man, I wish I would have kept with creative financing. 20 years later, I could have probably been 3 times bigger if I would have and I'm content where I'm at, believe me. But what advice would you give, or what you've done wrong, what you have done would have done differently? And what advice would you give in that realm? What pops in your mind?
Stephen, I think you're kind of talking about what can we do to transform our lives, and what have I done? What's made the biggest difference for me?
Sure.
And what I would point to is a couple of things, and I think maybe one of the most important is the habits, the personal habits that we have. You talked about a really important one, which is reading. And
that's why I like you, man.
I mean, I'm not bragging here.
That's why I like you.
But I like to have at least 3 books going at once that I'm reading, and at least 3 audios going that I'm listening. And I'm not spending all my time either reading or listening to audios. At least 30 minutes to an hour a day. But yeah, it's important to get that in. That's a great habit. There's a really good book, if any of your listeners are interested, and will tell me some more about habits. Atomic Habits.
Yeah, I just finished it.
That's a really powerful book.
Mm-hmm. So just the intricacy of actually committing to doing something at that level. Like when he talks about the part where the book where they wanted to be the best cyclist, and everything became a habit of the tires, and just the intricacy of habits of how micro could they be, and the big results that you receive from. Exactly. Yeah. It's a phenomenal book, Atomic Habits.
I mean, for me, every day I start my day with sitting meditation for at least 10 minutes, and I'll read I'll read at least 1 page in one book before I get up off of that little pad I have. So
great.
That's a really important one.
Religious belief, right? I mean, you made that journey not too long ago, right?
Yes,
that was very important.
Having some faith, I mean, I don't know that, I think that's kind of also someone who's younger. Maybe it's not a big priority, but that I think that for me at least that shifted as I got older and got more experience and saw more of the world.
Cool.
That changes.
So habits, take some time, have some religious belief in there. What else? Done differently, or I'm never going to do that again.
So one other habit I will point to that for me has made more and more of I journal. So you probably see that I brought a notebook with me, and in my notebook
And your busy phone.
I do a well, the phone is probably a bad habit, okay?
Okay.
But it's like a
That's your lifeline.
it's like a necessary evil. But the thing that I do with my journal is every day I like to write down a few things like what worked, what didn't work, what did I learn, and what needs to happen.
Cool.
So, and again, it's not one of those things where this takes 3 hours. I should be able to get done with that whole process in 15 or 20 minutes. But I think the cumulative, of doing that for, you take a year or 2 years, you really start to see some patterns, and you start to say, well, wait a minute, I'm not making progress because I start something and then I stop doing it. I start something that works for me, and why don't I keep doing that because it worked well? And I think
self-sabotage.
It really helps you to develop some self-awareness. So I'd leave you with those things.
Self-awareness. Okay. Well, let's wrap this up, but we can't wrap this up without people not knowing about your blog and knowing who you are. So your name is Scott Nachatilo, and you have a website. What is that website? It's
yourokcpropertymanager.com.
So YOUR?
Yes, YOUR.
Property manager.
Your OKC propertymanager.com.
And on there is where you've been writing for a long time, at least for almost a year, 6 months.
I started that maybe 5 years ago. My first one, and anybody that starts a blog, your first articles are going to be terrible. Okay, just get over it. Go ahead and start writing your first articles. But anyway, but over that period of time, I've kind of learned some things about how to make good content.
Well, I enjoy that you get on, if you can get on Scott Nachatilo's list, because I get an email once a month or once a quarter. I can't remember, but every time I get it, I look at, scan at it, and I'm glad that you're in the trenches and that you're working every day and in this industry, and you've seen a lot, and you're an advocate for tenants and or investors. You're kind of a cool liaison, what's right and what's right on both sides. And I appreciate that. Me, I'm more, investor. Tenants are, but I love that you've always been neutral and I guess fair would be the right. And I just enjoy our relationship throughout these years, man. I didn't know that I've known you that long. But go to yourokcpropertymanager.com. Sign up for his. Is it monthly? Is when you write a blog post?
Well, I send out an email once a week. That's probably why you noticed me.
I don't know. I've learned so much from you. I can't even target back to all the things. But anyway, it's been a pleasure, and I hope that you can get some more followers and maybe even a new customer. If you own an investment property in Oklahoma City and you're from around the world, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you give your phone number and you call people back and take a look at Scott Nachatilo. Interview him and see what he does on a daily basis. He's got a wonderful office. And I've known him for a long time, and I vouch for him. When people ask me, who do you recommend for property, I need to get paid, for property management, is Scott Nachatilo. Thanks for coming in, Scott.
Thanks so much, Stephen.
Investor Weekend is not far off, with over 10 information sessions to increase your portfolio. Log on to www.investorweekend.com. Whether you are a seasoned investor or never purchased a property before, you don't want to miss the Investor Weekend. Join us for a powerful, knowledge-packed weekend with over 10 informational sessions that are bound to enlarge your real estate investments. You will hear from the best national and local real estate investors that will share practical and relevant experiences with you, the investor. There will be several networking sessions to connect with other like-minded people for potential funding, partnerships, and yes, hot deals. Go to www.investorweekend.com. Did you know we meet once a month for the Landlord Lunch Meeting? The third Wednesday of every month. Go to landlordlunch.com.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.